Good morning and welcome to the homestead. Nice sunny day out, but don't let that deceive you. It's about 10 degrees out. We're used to it here in Maine, so hopefully everybody down south is dealing with this, is getting through this okay, finding a way to stay warm, finding a way to do what they need to do. So our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody down there. Today's project on the homestead is we have to put an electrical service on a house. We've been contracted to do that. We're going to go ahead and pre-assemble it here in the shop where it's 60 degrees instead of outside where it's 10 degrees. And then when we get to the job site, all we have to do is mount this on the building, fasten it to the building, drive our ground rods and run our ground wire. So caveat, I will say this is something that you need to know what you're doing. This is not like wiring a receptacle. We are licensed electricians. We do this for a living, so don't do what I do. Find yourself an electrician to do this for you. So this is just really for entertainment purposes, we'll say. So what we have here, we have a 10-foot stick of rigid pipe. Now we could have just run service entrance cable up the side of the house, but I like to put it in pipe. If you've ever been around an older house, you've seen that service entrance cable and the insulation's all frayed and you can see the wires. Pipe isn't that expensive. We have a 100 amp meter socket with a disconnect. So it has a service disconnect built into this. Rules vary all over the country. Here in the state of Maine, effective June, so we have a few months, we will have to have this disconnect on the side of the house, and we have to have a whole house surge arrestor, which you'll maybe see in another video. I like to do this anyways. This doesn't add a lot of cost to the service, and as a former firefighter and as a solar guy, just being familiar with everything, having a way to shut the power off without going down the basement seems like a really good idea. So we've got our meter socket. We have a 2-inch hub, which you'll see us use. It was on the top of the meter socket and the pipe screws into. We have some white tape. We have a weather head. We have some no locks, and then we have a bunch of copper wire. You technically don't need the no locks on the copper wire. I still use it because this is outdoors. It's not supposed to be any water in there, but I just like to use it. It's cheap insurance. So we're going to just let you come along with us while we put this project together today. And we'll go from there. Another little trick I like to do is I like to put some no locks on the threads of my conduit. I find it's kind of like an anti-seize and helps me turn my hub on a lot easier. So if you come around this way and look, there's a bit more spacing here than there is here, and the two sides are equal. So this is the bottom or the back that goes against the wall of the house, and this goes on the face. So it's setting just the way it will go. This is going to come up and go just like that. And then we're going to put our bolts in it. And you notice we didn't put any gaskets or anything in there. There's an actual flange on the box that turns up. So if any water does get in there, it runs out under this instead of going down in the box. Yeah, we're going to knock out our mounting holes while we're redoing the bench. Grab our channel locks, pop them off on the backside. Then we have to put our leather head on, up here on the other end. Just clamps on and seats down in there like that. And we line it up square with that down there. Now we're ready to run some wire. So we generally just buy all one color wire, and we tape the neutral ourselves. Some electrical supply houses have white wire you can use for the neutral. Good catch. And there's different schools of thought. Some say you can put bands every so often. I just like to cover the whole wire where it's exposed. And we're using copper wire. You can use aluminum for this. It is a little bit cheaper. I prefer copper when I can justify it cost-wise. Aluminum wire is fine. The issue I have with aluminum wire is if it does get wet, it does corrode really quick. So copper, on the other hand, just turns green, but it doesn't disappear. Aluminum will turn into a powder and basically disappear. So if you've got a direct burial aluminum cable and it gets a nick from a rock, and it gets and sucks up moisture over time, when you go to dig it up, you'll find a piece of the wire actually missing. You know, it just turned to a white powder and gone. Yeah, we're going to stop there for now and see how much we have hanging out. We're going to take the end Sue has and put a little identifier on it for ourselves because it's going down inside the meter socket. Then we're going to slide this one down through the pipe and connect it up. And I like to strip my wire a little longer than the socket it's going in, so you can see copper out each side of it. That way at a glance you can make sure you didn't get your insulation in under the wire. Locks down in there. On the wire. Fold this down where we want it. You'll notice these, when they loosen up, we can take them right out of there. They go over a little ear right in there, and they set into a track right there, and they tighten up when you tighten the wire down. That makes it easier. It's not so bad on a 100 amp service, but when you start doing a 200 or 400 amp service, it's a lot easier to deal with your wire. Keep it going. So what we've done in here, we're going to go ahead and put this back together, but you'll notice we've hooked up our neutral to a neutral bus here, which is bonded to the can, and it comes down to this one where the customer connections will be. So this is where we'll connect our ground rods and the neutral to the house. And then we've landed our two phases of our not really phases because that indicates like three phase, but this is what's called split phase. So this is 120 to neutral and 120 to neutral, or 240 between them. On the top side of the can here where the meter jaws are, and then it has bus bars that go down to our 100 amp breaker. So now we put the cardboard back in, and we put this cover back on, and we're done with that until we get to the site tomorrow. What we'll end up doing tomorrow on the site is right here is a knockout for a 1/2 inch conduit. We'll go ahead and get that knocked out now before we put this in the truck. And then we have 1/2 inch conduit. We have the grounding bar that's required by law here in Maine. And we have our two ground rods, which have to be at least 12 feet apart, that will go in. And this is the end of the utilities portion of it right here. So when you do an electrical service, at least in Maine, and I think most states are this way, the service disconnect is where the utility responsibility is, if you will. You own the equipment, but up until this point, they keep you locked out of it, because it's not metered and not fused, if you will. From here on is the homeowner's responsibility. So this is another good reason, like in Maine, to do the disconnect on the outside of the building, is now the utility doesn't have to traipse through the house, go down in the basement or wherever it may be and look at your electrical panel, because that's a different portion of the electrical work. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our weatherhead on up top. In order to do that, we have to knock 3 of these knockouts out of this plastic Bakelite. They used to be Bakelite. I think they're more plastic than anything now. And we're going to go for those 3 right there. We're just going to be a little gentle. And knock those out, just like that. So you can see where it's nice and warm in here. This is much easier than it will be trying to do this in the field tomorrow. Now we take this, we're going to take our white tape, because remember we didn't mark the whole wire. Just so the utility inspector, because this will have to be inspected by the actual utility company in Maine. Just so the utility inspector doesn't get too grumpy about it, we'll finish taping it. So this is going to sit in there like that. So we want to bring our neutral up through the middle. Like so. And then we want to bring our 2 hots. And then we're going to put our weatherhead back on, holding everything just right, and tighten up our 2 screws. Just like that. That's pretty much it. Like I said, we'll do everything else on site. Now what we got to do is when we get to the site, we have these 2 hole straps like this that go on the conduit. Every so often, we have a point of attachment that has to be screwed into the house, pointing towards the telephone pole for the utility. We have our ground kit here that we can show you. It's required by our utility anyways. I don't know how every utility is, but this is it's a grounding bar inside. I will open it up and show you. So, anybody's ever had satellite TV installed or telephone companies come out, you might notice that they stick something in the side of the breaker panel, or they connect onto the ground wire with something. This is mandated by our local code, so that they have a place to ground without altering anything else that's grounded. So this will end up going on the building, just like this. Short piece of conduit between here. We'll screw this to the building, and we'll run a piece of conduit down to the ground, where the wire can be buried, and then go to the ground rods. And then we basically have to shoot for between 4 and 5 feet to the top of the meter can, the actual meter hole here, not the can. For the utility reader to be able to read it, even though they don't read them anymore, they're all electronic. So that's really it. It's a pretty straightforward process. Like I say, we will wrap this up, and any questions, leave them down below. We'll do our best to answer them. So thanks for coming along today while we did this. Don't forget to like and subscribe.